Hello, Jeff with Arizona Hot Homestead here. So if you've been watching some of my videos, and you better have, if not, I'll put a playlist up here or over here about my solar components. I've been putting together my solar, and it's been up and running for 2 full months. So let's just take a look at the whole system and together. That's what this video is all about. Let's start with the solar panels. I got 4 panels sitting on a manual adjust pole. These panels are 260 watts each, totaling to 1,560 watts of beautiful solar power. Now on this pole, I got a 4-foot hole dug, that's 2 feet by 2 feet. And on this pole, there's a pole down there, and then there's this pole with this lever right there. But when I twist that, I can loosen it to spin this pole, so I can turn this pole according to the horizon axis. And then as far as the tilt of the sun, basically I just loosen and adjust this, loosen and adjust this one, and now I can adjust to the tilt of the sun, to the angle of the sun. This pole here so far has withstood, in the last 2 months I've had what, 3 days I think of at least 50-mile-an-hour winds, and this thing is held up pretty nicely. The uni struts that are done, that are used, these uni struts do flex a little and they give a little, so that's what makes it easy about adjusting my my angles here on the sun. I had this custom made by Daryl with Alternative, let's see if I get it right, Alternative Energy Discount House here in Concho, Arizona. So it's a non-profit, and I'll put a link to their website there. He was very helpful. He made this thing for me. This box here is just my junction box, and I haven't put any caulking in here just yet, but I'm going to caulk this top here. I just put a cover over my wiring to help protect it, even though it's in the shade now. The Arizona weather will still destroy the wiring, so even in shade. So I got it in here. This transitions the wiring for the solar panels into regular 6-gauge wire going down from here. So now I've twisted it to give me some flexibility as I turn the pole. And then I got that going down into the ground. So now let's go take a look at the batteries on my... Before we talk batteries, I'm going to show you how my wire's coming in. I got 6-gauge coming in here from the solar panels, going in there. These here, the wires are coming out and going to different places like the RV and the barn and stuff like that. That one there is a to be determined later one. Same with that one, and then that one's coming out from my ground, which my ground is right there. Copper pole 6 feet in, or it's actually a metal pole with a copper coating, and it's 6 feet in the ground. I know these aren't batteries, so I gotta follow the wires to the batteries. All right, so here's what I got. I got 6-gauge coming in, going into a 60 amp breaker. I've partnered with Amazon to bring you guys some amazing deals, so check this out, ArizonaHotHomestead.com/store for some amazing deals. Now back to your video. I attached the negatives by a bus bar, and then I come around and go into my charge controller. This is a this is a SolarMate 24 volt 60 amp. So far over the last 2 months, everything has worked absolutely perfect. I don't have a load that's on here. If you look, I have an option to put a load. So when the batteries are full, I can have another set of wires going to some other load, and kind of like a dump load, if you will. This white wire on the side is my temperature, and it goes down into the batteries. In fact, it goes down right in there, and then attached to one of these batteries on the side. This white wire here is actually a ground. It goes to the chassis right there, and then it goes into my distribution box. I'll show you here in a second. So anyhow, so the battery wires come out 6-gauge still, goes to this meter. That's going to be difficult right now what I'm getting at on this meter. See how well it's coming out here. About 28 volt or 28 amps and about 745 watts. And my batteries are sitting at 26 volts. So now I told you earlier I have 1500 watts of panels, but only 700 are coming in. Why is that? Well, if you look at the volts at 26.2, this solar charger will actually charge, will float charge right around 26 volts, and that's what it is. If that voltage was higher, more like 20, 28, 29, 30, then it would be charging batteries. So I don't actually need it to tell me what it's doing. All I want to know is I'm getting something in. And then I've got, again, I'm using these bus bars here to link them all together. Come around, come down, and then into my batteries. So my batteries, I have Rolls-Royce S605s, which are 6 volts each and 468 amps per battery. So I have bank 1, 24 volts at 468 amps, another bank. So parallel these banks together. And if you've been watching some of my videos, I try to make it simple so that when you do your first bank, this is called series. And the great way to know what happens with the amps and volts is to know SIV, S-I-V. So series increase the voltage. So I got 6, 12, 18, 24 volts, but the amp stayed at 468. Same thing with this one. Then I paralleled them, and parallel is PIA, P-I-A, parallel increase amps. So the volts stayed the same, but my amps went from 936, or excuse me, from 468 to 936. Now, because now this is one big battery, you can only have one positive and one negative, but they have to be on opposite ends. So that is my designated positive, and opposite end, that is my designated negative. I cannot put the negative over there because it would be drawing off of that bank and isolating this one, and I'd get charging problems, equalizing problems, and all kinds of problems. So they have to be opposite. So there's one there, and there it is on bank 2. It also means all my connections goes on there, and if you can tell, I have like 1, 2, 3, I got like 4 wires going to there. And this one here, I got more than that, because there's a temperature one there for my inverter, and then there's a ground. Now, your batteries need to be grounded, just like your car battery. When you look at your car battery, there is another small wire that comes off the negative and goes to the chassis. Well, that's grounding that battery. Well, you have to do the same thing with your battery bank too, and you ground it off of your negative. So I used one of the black 6 gauges to do that. These cables that bring all these batteries together are called welding cable, and it is 4/0. I got them coming into here. So now what I have is, this is my inverter. This is a Samlex 2200. So there's my fuse. That fuse actually should be over there. That fuse needs to be basically 6 inches or 7 inches, they say, from the positive terminal. Well, I've got it there, so it's incorrect, but it still will protect. It just won't protect as well, because see what happens is if you put that fuse right there with all those other connections, that's the true purpose of that fuse, is to take all this stuff here and make sure that it doesn't affect the batteries. So that's where the fuse comes in. I forget the amperage on the fuse. So alright, so where should I go next? Let's see. So I have on my battery system, I have the 4/0 cables going to the inverter, so that's going to give me my 120. But what I also did was I want to have some 12 volt option. So I've got my 6 gauge coming from the positive and from the negative. That's going to come up through here, and it actually goes around to a bus bar back here, right there. See if you can see it with the lighting here. Goes to a bus bar right there. from that bus bar, I have 6-gauge wire here going to my RV. And then I have 6-gauge wire coming up through here with a switch and going to a converter, and that's a 24 to 12 volt converter. So in my shed here where my batteries are, I actually have some lighting. Those are 12 volt lights. And I just use simple 12-gauge wire up in here. Let's see, where am I? 12-gauge wire right here to the lights. These are just standard, ordinary, cheapo stuff from Home Depot. And then those lights are LED 7-watt lights. Now the reason why I have DC lighting in here, plus I have DC going to the RV, is so that it gives me options. I can now shut this down if I want and run just 12 volts. Because my RV for the most part just needs the 12 volts. I really only need this to run my computer and the TV or whatever. And I don't have a laptop, so I have to use a desktop computer. And so in doing so, that's where this inverter really is giving me my main stuff. So the ground off of this negative here, so it goes right in there off the batteries. I've just put a green tape on it because this is 6-gauge, and this guy comes up and around and up into my panel and to the bus bar for the negatives. Right here is the chassis ground for the inverter. That cable is a 10-gauge cable. I just pulled it from one of my 120 lines. One of these guys here. I just pulled one from there. The 10-gauge will actually cover 30 amps, so that should be plenty to cover that ground, and it goes up and into the grounding bus bar as well. I have a monitor deal here, a remote deal. This cable here plugs in right down there in one of those two slots there. I have this white one right next to it that's going to replace this black one, because the white one's longer and I'll have it going to the RV, so I can have this remote in the RV. I'm currently inverting 3 amps, 2.9. Now I'm going to do another video about amps, because it's funny when I watch other people's talk about YouTubers talk about power and amps and voltage and stuff. They never seem to specify. So this is 2.93 at 120 volts. These batteries are 936 amps at 24 volts. That matters. For an example, and again I'll cover this in another video for more detail, that 3 amps right there is actually equivalent to 30 amps at 12 volts, 15 amps at 24 volts. So right now I'm using, for my refrigerator and all that stuff, I'm using 15 amps of these batteries of my 936. And then this will also tell me things like, see how well it's coming out with my lighting here. Gives me, that equates to 342 watts. I'm just getting to know this. I have no idea what VA means. No idea what that stuff means. 24 or 25.7 volts for the battery. This is half a volt less than that guy right there. Just happens to be 0.6 today. Well, no, because the other one just changed. So what it does is, your inverter, doesn't matter how efficient it is, you're going to lose some power. That's why a lot of people won't use inverters and just stick with DC power to help reduce the loss. But still, a half a volt loss isn't that much really in the big picture of things. See, now I'm down to, oh, I don't know what that means either. I'm getting to know this stuff. So see, now I'm down to only 0.5 amps. So probably the converter controller in the RV probably was on, the fan was on and turned off. Because I have, sitting on my RV, I have my DC line going to the RV, plus I have a standard 30 amp plug-in for the RV. So I'm using both AC and DC power to it, and again, it gives me flexibility, so I can shut this off and I got my DC, or I can leave this on and I'm also using some AC power. So my RV thinks it's parked at a resort right now, because this is my resort. Alright, so what else can I cover? Oh, my battery temperature. This guy here also has a temperature. This is the cabling for the temperature. It also connects up right there, and so it attaches to the negative, whereas the charge controller goes in the middle of all these batteries. And so this is a charger and a inverter. So this line here is going to go to a generator that I don't have hooked up yet. That line there goes to my distribution box. So I could charge my batteries using a generator. So if I have a lot of stormy, cloudy days, I could do that. This bottom one not being used, that one there is if I wanted to be grid tied. Well, I'm 2 miles from the nearest power pole, so that ain't happening. These other green guys here, those are just for some other options that they provide, and same thing even with these other guys right in here. These are like COM 1, 2, 3, 4. So I don't need those, so I didn't. I don't have that hooked up. I don't even know what they are. I just know I don't need them. Let's see. So, on my panel, this is just a standard electrical box that you may have in your house, and this one, this style here is for indoors. This is my main switch here, so it's 60 amps. This one here is going to my RV, and that's a 30 amp one. And then I have a couple of 20 amps. This one here is going to a water pump and a future washing machine. And then this other 21, this 20, I just happen to have another 20 for some reason. So I just wired that up to the barn where my computer is. And then these others that I have, that one also goes to the barn. That one goes behind the trailer. And then these three here just aren't going anywhere right now. So now let me take off this box here with the screws up there, and let me show you the inside of this box. So this is my 120 volt distribution box. What a mess. Check out my other videos for the details of this, but I'll just kind of give you the basics. I have the inverter coming in up through here. Goes into that section there, which energizes, that's called the neutral, the white. Goes a piece there, the bar there, those two bus bars are for all the white wires. All the black wires goes into the breakers, and then all the copper wires go over here on this grounding bus bar over here. And then that white one there that goes into the grounding bus bar, that goes my charge controller. That black one goes to the box of the inverter, and then the thicker 6-gauge one right there goes to my batteries. Now I have a jumper right here, and normally you don't want to do a jumper, but in this box here, this is a what's called a 120 amp box. There is a breaker, a main breaker that would go right here, but I had 120 amps. I didn't want that. So what I did was I got what they call a double pole. These two here are connected, and then by me doing this, it connects it. So this piece right here is one power strip, if you will. This one here is a second one, and they do not connect. Even though it looks like they might, they don't. That's why you have a double pole. It connects up with this one. That wire there now connects it up with this one. So now I energize both of these. And so everything below that is now controlled by that one. And then I just have my wires coming down, going through here and going into their locations. The size of these wires, this here gray, that's called a direct burial insulated wire. I chose that over the others for a couple reasons. One, it is a direct burial. I can just bury that underneath the ground. I don't need some kind of conduit to put it through. Plus, this is actually made out of a rubber material, whereas insulation from here, that insulation as well as this insulation, that's why I had to put this in a conduit from the solar panels to here, because that's made out of a corn byproduct or some type of corn product. So it's weird, it's always been like that, but wiring insulation, that's why rodents would chew on that, is because it's made out of corn. There's a sweetness to it. This is made out of oil, it's rubber, so they won't chew on that. So that's why it's okay for direct burial. So I went ahead and used this even when I wired up my barn, and I'm going to use this throughout the whole thing just to help reduce any potential rats and mice chewing on my wires. It costs a little bit more, but again, I don't have to worry about them chewing on something and creating a short. So yeah, it may kill the rat, but it may also create a short and cause a fire. So I don't want to burn down. I have no fire department, so you know, I'm not in a fire district, so I am my own fire department. Now that's off grid, isn't it? I am my own power company, my own water company, my own fire department. Alright, so that's my distribution box, and that's my solar setup. And got any questions, throw it down in the comments. Like I said, I'm going to put a link over here or over here on my whole playlist that covered each one of these components as I was installing them. But I did an overview of all my components before I installed, and I figured maybe I'll just do one now that it's installed and it's running for 2 full months. And I'm doing fantastic, folks. My charge controller, some people made fun of me, my charge controller, but for the last 2 months it's done absolutely beautiful. I couldn't ask for a better system, really, except maybe 4 more batteries, but I think these are expensive, so I couldn't afford more batteries. Oh, my box. If you notice, the front isn't done just yet, and I don't have my venting in the back. Before this winter, I will put a front on this, and I'm going to put a with holes down on the bottom of the front, and then a hole through the back, and that will allow it to vent out, and the batteries themselves will provide some heat. I've got this radiant barrier in here and also foam insulation, so this box is well protected, well insulated, so it should keep itself warm, because it only needs to be about 65 degrees. That's the optimal temperature for air temperature for batteries. And so right now I'm just leaving this front open, and I have this top that just comes off. That's about it. I just showed you my whole solar setup. For 2 full months, it's working beautifully. Now I'll give you guys some updates from time to time. Thank you for watching my video today, and I appreciate you watching it all the way through there. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and comment. Every little bit helps support my channel. My name is Jeff, and you've been watching Arizona Hot Homestead.